Hi. I didn't tell anyone I was coming on, so I'm not expecting anyone to come, but I just was having a thought, and this thought has been coming up for me a lot. And I guess I wanted to share it, but I don't want to share it in short form or in such a way where things can get clipped, or I just want to stream of consciousness kind of think out loud more so. And I figured, why not do that on a live, right? Because we should totally do that on the internet. No, but I have these conversations with myself often, but I felt like sharing this one today. So I was on Twitter just now, and on these redes, on these social media sites, I see a lot of different things, a lot of different debates all the time. I like to observe, I should say, people speaking to one another in comment sections, the way people debate things, the way people talk about things, because I feel like there's so much truth that comes out through dialogue, through conversation. And one thing I always notice is how we always talk about this men versus women narrative. And I see all kinds of a range of expressions. I myself partake in a lot of the thoughts, the collective thoughts that we all have. But I feel like this binary that exists for us in this moment tends to steer us away from the truths of a lot of things, because we tend to pick a side, and when we pick a side, we lose nuance. And I feel like one of the things, I'm shaking weird, one of the things that comes up for me really deeply when I'm thinking about this is how statistically men are way exponentially more violent than women, right? You just need to look around. You need to just look in your family, look around, look in the neighborhood, watch the news, not watch the news, listen to local people speak about their experiences to understand that this is, partially true. This is true. But the patriarchy, to me, is more of the issue. And I believe that the patriarchy breeds emotional immaturity. And that emotional immaturity, to me, is the root cause of so much of this pain that we're all experiencing. And I say emotional immaturity because I feel like when patriarchy takes over, when people split up into these gender binaries and they become what a man is or become what a woman is, they have roles that they need to uphold, right? And in upholding these roles, they deny themselves parts of their truth. And so when men suppress their emotions, which they're inclined to do way more than women, just the way society's set up, they're more inclined to push down their truths, more inclined to not speak about their feelings, which then in turn creates volatile mental health situations, of course. And they're also asked to not have empathy. They're told that empathy is weak, and the things that make, women overly emotional, essentially to me is also maturity, right? Requirement of emotional intelligence to be able to understand everything that's going on all the time, to interpret people's feelings before we really know them, before we even have a conversation. And I feel like that's also detrimental to women, or to the feminine. And again, we're talking binaries right now. I understand that through queerness, there's a bunch of an array of the way that this expresses. I'm specifically talking about the cis hetero narrative, and how much of that drives society, regardless of whether or not we exist. You know what I'm saying? These narratives are what I feel like perpetuate, conservative Republican thought, right? Which is to preserve a family unit, which is to preserve the binary, which is to preserve these ideas. And I feel like the emotional immaturity that we all, myself included, exhibit so often has to do with the amount of feelings that are being suppressed instead of felt. Whether those feelings are positive or negative, quote unquote, another binary, you know what I mean? Feelings are feelings, and they're all temporary. As long as you let yourself feel them. As long as you let yourself express them one way or another, right? So if we have a bunch of volatile people running around who don't know how to express their feelings, or don't feel safe expressing their feelings or their needs because we live in this tense state of existence right now where like a lot of women are being asked and are listening to the call to level up energetically, to move in accordance to their truth, to not allow people to gaslight them, to not allow themselves to be in situations where they're repeating patterns with the same kinds of people who don't pour back into them. Because as the divine feminine is asked to give and give and give and give and give, and very rarely receives, and very rarely is allowed to receive in the way that it's set up right now. However, that's not how it's supposed to be. There's an imbalance. There's a deep imbalance. And I feel like there's a lot more women getting in tune with what they have to do in order to level up their own consciousness, in order to level up, to get a grip on their own mental health, on their own stress levels, on their own realities, right? And the way that they show up in their realities. And I don't feel like men are doing the same thing as a collective, right? I don't feel like are there some men doing that? Absolutely. Do I have friends and men in my life who are looking at their roles and how the patriarchy moves and how they can step up better as protectors of the women in their lives, of the queers in their lives, because queerness to me is the opening of the spectrum, right? It's stepping away from this binary that was created and given to us to suppress us, okay? To keep us divided from one another, to keep us in these like men versus women cycles, so that the existence of trans folks or the existence of non-binary folks is so crazy and so like taboo and so new and whatever. It's not new. This is like humans have been experiencing spectrum of existence since the beginning of time, since old. This is knowledge. This is indigenous to all kinds of places, to everywhere, to reality, to nature, right? So if we have this binary that exists and one side is doing the work, right, the inner work, or not, and I can't do that because there are a lot of women who are also still very much stuck in this paradigm, very much stuck. This is why I wanted to do this on like a live and not just like in a short like stint of a thing, because like there's so much nuance to this conversation. I believe there's so much nuance to this conversation because I feel like there are so many ways that this manifests for us, right? This is like mental health, this is public health, this is the ways that we take care of each other or don't as communities. This is the way we move. It's like there's like this lack of empathy, just deep bottomless pit of petty, or bottomless pit of like debate. There's so much debate, and everyone I think is just debating from their own experience, debating from the standpoint of their own experience. Very few people are going to actually seek out the information to back up a debate. Very few people are actually looking at the statistics to see how they can really feel about something. And there's a lot of malice, there's a lot of hatred, there's a lot happening right now, and like I think that we also ignore it. It's not normal that we see that there's a new shooting every day, a new mass shooting every day. It's not a coincidence either that like something like Jeffrey Dahmer's docu-series or no sé qué fucking mierda like would be the number one thing in the world right now to watch. Like there's an actual psychosis happening here, guys. There's like an actual, there's no empathy. Like we really sincerely are distancing ourselves from like our own humanity. We're so desensitized to it. There's people who are legitimately rising like as like alt-right leaders and neo-fascists, and all of these things are very real.